Modern architecture is no longer bound by rules. This allows creativity and cutting-edge ideas to form daily. The technology of construction must therefore evolve. At BlueScope, we are at the forefront of innovation. We develop steel not only to serve as material, but also as a source of inspiration, helping to fuel the creativity of architects looking to build the latest modern architectural marvels. BlueScope's innovative lightweight steel has allowed architectural forms to become increasingly organic. Our flat, curved and tapered steel panels reveal a new world of possibilities for freeform architecture. Once freed from the limitations of traditional materials, buildings can now be crafted precisely according to aspired values and aesthetics. Every building has the potential to become one of the world's iconic designs. Innovations in coated steel have helped improve its utility and beauty in all types of designs, from buildings to home appliances. BlueScope's innovations have transformed steel into a primary material suitable for all types of design and construction projects. Even houses can now be included, as our innovative structural steel can be used anywhere from the roof, walls to the floor, and is durable in all weather conditions. Building houses has never been this easy, convenient or quick, and standards have never been higher. BlueScope will never stop developing and innovating. We want to push boundaries and help transform a great design into an architectural masterpiece recognized around the world. With our networks in Australia, America, and Asia. BlueScope has become a world leader in innovation and the production of coated steel and pre-painted steel. We are advancing the construction and design industries and improving the standard of living for people of all classes. We manufacture the highest quality cold-rolled steel, coated steel, and pre-painted steel of beauty and unmatched durability. BlueScope has also set new safety standards in the construction industry. Our system, processes and equipment during installation put the safety of workers first. Going beyond the limits of imagination will no longer be just a dream if we have innovations that can make it a reality. BlueScope will work with architects and designers to support and inspire each other with the goal of advancing the worlds of construction and architecture together.
Good afternoon, honorable guests and fellow architects. Good afternoon, อาจารย์หันษา
Good afternoon อาจารย์พัชริน
This afternoon, we are honored to present Mr. Max Schwitalla, the founder of Max Schwitalla Studio Schwitalla, which is found in 2012. Prior to Studio Schwitalla, he has worked for OMA, Graph, and co-founder of Hen Studio B. His studio focuses on experimental work intersecting between architecture and urban design, conceiving of neighborhoods as three-dimensional structure. In response to the future urban mobilities.
The work of the studio Schwitalla have been awarded with Clown Humphreys Prize, the prize for the city and density, visions for the city of tomorrow, offline for visionary projects for transportations by rope, Evolo 06 as competitions for a skyscraper, and Tate in Space for Tate Gallery London. Now please welcome Max Schwitalla.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a big pleasure and it's a big honor to be here today with you. Is the presentation? Yes, fantastic, it's working. So, given the fact, or given the theme of this talk, the idea of Bahn and the reconsidering dwelling, we try to frame our presentation around this topic and basically say, think about dwelling in the context of the future of urban mobility and the form of neighborhoods. So how will the future of mobility shape our cities differently than it does today? As mentioned before, our work is much more experimental, more research-driven, so please don't expect too many finished projects yet. I will end with one that we start constructing this summer. And you see on the bottom right, basically we don't have traditional clients, we rather have these kind of research partners from the industry, which is mobility providers, basically. Schindler Elevators, Audi, the car company, Mini, and other research institutions, like the Fraunhofer Institute, who do collaborative research with us. So, but before we start, I would rather introduce basically the team and the studio family, basically the family since 2012, not everybody right now, but since we started in 2012, and actually only Oke and myself, we the Germans on this sheet here. Everybody else is from Mexico, France, Spain, Ukraine, Lithuania, Austria, Daniel, and but actually most of them are coming from Thailand. So you see Pa, Goop, Fuse, Jojo, they're sitting here, 3 of them. And it's quite interesting. So our studio is much more Thai than German, actually. And I just came here, Berlin, 7 degrees and rainy. So I really start thinking to reallocate to Thailand. Maybe I hope to come back early again. Yes. So I actually, when I was younger, I was a skateboarder. Of course, not as good as this guy. I would probably be dead by now and not sitting here. But I think it's a really interesting way to read the city if you're a skateboarder. And you actually move through the city in a different way. Obstacles become kind of opportunities to do a trick. You read it three-dimensionally. And I think that's really where I started to fall in love with architecture, with the urban design basically around it. And then this happened, 2011 was that. It actually didn't happen to me, it happened to my ex-girlfriend, but don't worry, she's fine, everything is good. It was not a bad crash, but it was, financially it was a disaster for the car, so it didn't make sense to fix it basically. And I think it was actually the best thing that could have happened to me. I don't know, who of you owns a car? Like, could you raise your hand quickly for me? Okay, so it's the students in the back, right? So little of them. But you know, think about if you own a car, it actually, is it really freedom for yourself, or is it actually limiting yourself? And I realized when this happened to me, it was a big, you know, freedom for myself to get rid of that car and to say like, well, I stopped owning a car. I actually can choose every day differently how I can ride through the city. And that was, for me, really, you know, a really important moment actually. And it was at the time when, you know, there was car sharing popping up in Berlin, Car2Go and then Drive Now, all these brands. So there was this time of a behavior innovation that we start, instead of owning the car, we share the car. And I think that's a really important, you know, time we're living in right now, because this happens, this behavior innovation, the sharing paradigm shift, and combine that with a product innovation, which is, you know, now the autonomous car is being all talked about. And I think it's actually, you know, a very important combination of those both. If we share kind of new technologies, you know, beautiful things will happen to our cities, I believe. And actually cities start to realize we cannot dedicate our city design only to the car anymore. This is an example from Barcelona, where they are researching the idea of a super block. So they actually want to cut off 2 out of 3 streets for cars and give them back to the pedestrians. And I think that's, you know, city mayors realized we have to compete with each other for our citizens, and we have to offer quality of life, not to the car, but to the people. And I think it's an, you know, very interesting kind of approach. And of course, we as an architects and urban designers, we have to be aware of that whatever line we're drawing that is dedicated to the car has a direct impact to the urban environment. In Europe, almost 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from transportation. And of course, most of it from road transportation, from cars. So I think we have, as urban designers, we have to be aware that, you know, functional separation, zoning, and, you know, the thinking for the car actually has a, you know, huge impact to our urban environment, to the environment. So can we organize our flows not just linear in a plane, but also start to, you know, organize them maybe 3-dimensionally? That's an example of a subway that could turn into something like this, which is called, we call it Babel Town on purpose, because it's not meant to be built like this, but we're saying like, you know, it's a provocation that we say, can we think city planning 3-dimensionally, not just 2-dimensionally plan, but, you know, really start, you know, densify our cities in a 3-dimension. And I think really images, you know, are really important. You will see a lot of images, collages, renderings, because, you know, there's for us architects such an important tool, because architecture, you know, takes so long and it's so expensive. I mean, so in between, you know, the images are such a, you know, important tool for us. And looking back, you know, the 60s and the 70s, I mean, these are really, you know, these times were for us really inspiring, or like, you know, still are very important references. And, you know, architectural provocations from these times, you know, collages, images, to provoke new thinking. I think that's really what our heroes are, basically. At the same time, maybe can we turn off this a little bit more? So I think it's more important, this stuff here. Can we? It's so bright, so I don't see you as well. Anyway, so in the 60s, that graph shows basically how many people were living on the entire planet. 3.3 billion people. Today we have over 7 billion people on the entire planet. That means in the last 50 years, the world population doubled. I mean, that's insane, right? If you think about like in the age of my parents, basically, during their lifetime, the population doubled. I think that's really crazy. And of course, we know today most of people live in cities, 50% roughly. That means the entire world population of 1960 today lives only in cities. And you know, the question is, of course, we have to ask is like, how did we design these cities? And we're relying on technology that's even older than 50 years, 60 years. That's over 100 years old. The car hasn't hasn't dramatically changed. It still has 4 wheels, it has a steering wheel, drives on gas. And on the other side, you see Alicia Otis, who presented the first elevator safety gear almost 150 years ago, and it's still working the same way today. The system, the security system mechanism is the same way in its functional way today. So these mobility technologies shaped our cities basically. And they had these different outcomes, the car city, the horizontal sprawl, and then the verticalization, based on the elevator basically. So that's the urban environment we're facing based on these, mobility technologies. That was amazing. I want to do it again. Wow. Wow. Nice. But I mean that's amazing, but it's actually terrible, right? That's an urban environment. I don't know who likes to live in there, structured by highways, streets and roads for the car. And then, that's the other extreme on the East Coast. That's LA before, of course, and this is New York, the East Coast, the kind of the icon of the elevator city, the verticalization. And of course, this verticalization is not just happening in the US, it was an export model all over the world. 2016, there was over 100 buildings being constructed that are above 200 meters. So this verticalization is like, it's a phenomenon around the world, and you see this kind of Hitchcock condition, like the world turns into this Hitchcock and this kind of social dead ends basically. Because, of course, density saves energy, right? This is a graph that shows the consumption of energy of a 4-person family that is living in a single-family house and that needs a car to commute, versus on the right, the same family living in an urban apartment and using public transportation and bicycles. And of course, this graph shows dramatically how much energy we can actually save. So again, architects could actually contribute to save more energy instead of wasting it by cars. But of course, it's also, if we talk about sustainability, we cannot only think about energy, we also have to think about the social and economic sustainability. And this graph shows the development, the verticalization over time in Hong Kong. And we see the ratio between privatized vertical space and the public layer on the bottom basically is 1 to 12. So we add more and more privatized space, we add more and more people, and we don't add public space. So there's a misrelationship between public space and private space, and people don't have space, literally they don't have space to meet anymore. So now, it's the city space is taken up by these towers, and in between we have some roads left basically, but there's no more space to actually meet. So this is a living condition in Hong Kong, 15 square meter per person. In Germany, it's about 40 right now. So, but that's super extreme, and so life has to happen within very kind of condensed boundaries, basically. And then, of course, the architectural design behind it doesn't it takes it to extreme. So even the hallway is like reduced to the minimum. So there's no more. You don't have a possibility to meet anyone around you anymore. Like you're stuck in your cell basically, and that's Hong Kong, the hinterland basically. It's kind of copy paste anonymity basically. This anonymous environment. You're just a number in street X, Y, and then level Z basically. And that's Kowloon Bay on the left. And on the right, I don't know if you recognize this from the movie Matrix. There was this human farm. For me, it's not a science fiction. It's a documentary. it's reality. I mean, it's happening. 15 square meters per person, everybody on a smartphone. I mean, that's, Matrix is for me, it's there, spatially, like, represented, basically. And then, I think the worst is when both come together, actually. When the car city and the core city, are combined. And like, I had the chance to work a lot in China as well, and, to see how they, plan cities right now. It's like, the urban designer draws the line for the car, and then the architect wraps the elevator. Sometimes nice, sometimes maybe not so nice, but, nobody thinks about people. I mean, there's no person in this image. That's a city, but, you see on the very left, there's maybe, almost being run over by cars. So cities are built for cars and elevators not for people. That's basically the message. And we want to kind of, try to reset the focus on people and not on these, old mobility technologies, basically. So that's an image that we, photoshopped, I think it's a very low resolution, but you can zoom in, like, we're all in there, like the team, we photoshopped for two months almost. But I think it's really like, it shows what we want to achieve, basically. And I mean, this is stuck, okay. But also an example from Hong Kong, we really have to, I think, trust people more, like, believe in people. They can do beautiful things, and they can overcome, a couple of stairs. That's fine, like, we have to just, I think walking is healthy, and this is something we have to foster more. So what I'm going to show you now is, like, basically, in the first chapter, a couple of studies, that are, designed, like neighborhoods designed, that are, driven by different mobility technologies, from walking to e-bike to a concept we developed together with Audi, the flywheel. And then, how this translates in the second chapter into urban kind of environments. And the third, I would like to kind of show you the first project that we're implementing now that has, of course, it's a much smaller scale, but it has these ideas kind of embedded, basically. So the first, of course, this is the smallest mobility unit we can think of. Feet, they're really, they can do fantastic things. Walking is not, doesn't equal walking. That's the most extreme examples. Walking through New York City versus walking through Venice in Italy. The most extreme you could think of, basically. And the experience when you walk through cities is like either very monotonous spatial experience in streets. It runs linear through, like, design around the cars, so there's not much change happening. And the other extreme would be in Venice, where it's like almost kind of you get lost. It's easy to lose orientation in this kind of small spaces, kind of hidden corners, and so on. And then we ask ourselves, could we actually, instead of the one or the other, could we say, could the intensity of pedestrian flows become a design tool for a gradual field from narrow, private, to open public spaces that gives actually a natural orientation? And I referred before to Barcelona as a role model, as an idea for a test bed to put this neighborhood in here, to say, instead of linear streets, this kind of field condition, this kind of gradient from open public to private closed spaces that this image should represent. And walking through Bangkok, of course, this is really such an inspiring moment when you like these boundaries blur between public and private moments. Is this still a shop? Is this still a street, or is this already kind of an extension of a living room, maybe even? So this, I think, these environments are really possible if you start to, if we only say we think of walking, not of streets for cars, but then these private spaces, they could fold into these streets. They could block even streets temporarily, because we can actually walk just around the corner and basically take a different path. So this architecture, the buildings, the units, they really become tools to kind of communicate with the neighbor, to generate different spatial conditions temporarily as well. And of course, these neighborhoods should always be interconnected. So we don't want to limit people to only their neighborhood. Of course, you have to move a bit further than that. with bus, with metro conditions, but of course, never cars. And I mean, if we think these environments, we could even be very keen and say, like, well, why not include swimming into our mobility concepts? I mean, you might be like, I mean, what the hell? How would you swim in Bern, in the capital of Switzerland? People swim to work. It's possible. People do it. Why not? I mean, if we think of salt water, we don't have to clean it every time. So, in the river Aare in Bern, if you're located right from with the stream, people actually jump into the river. They have these bags, these red bags, where you put your mobile phone and everything in, and then they get off and then go to work. That's amazing, right? So, next one. Next, neighborhood design, basically designed around the idea of the e-bike. There's all these fun mobility concepts coming up now. Segways, these mono wheels. They're really dangerous. Actually, I tried one. It's really tough, even though I was skateboarding, but it's really tough to ride. But I think the e-bike, and that shows on the right, especially here as an e-mountain bike, is really interesting because it makes you faster but it also helps you to overcome height much easier. So we actually thought that this is really, it's a very relevant alternative that is being thought of at the moment. The e-bike. There's a lot of pedelec highways being planned in London and so on. So how could we, design space around this kind of e-bike concept? And so that's kind of a design language parameters, how kind of angles you can turn, how high you can go with a ramp and so on. And some artists already translated. No, that's not an e-bike. He has to do all the muscle work, but I mean it's a really kind of interesting kind of translation of movement into a spatial condition that we were really fascinated about. And then of course you can really mathematically, I mean, don't ask me, please. The guys did it. I have no idea, but it's really there's high, science behind, of course, that, and we kind of translated that into kind of, Rhino grasshopper tools and so on. So it became really kind of advanced computational design tool. And then it generates kind of these spaces designed around the logic of flow, basically. And this simple 8 was really fascinating for us to look further into and to say, design around 30 kilometers per hour, which is possible with the e-bike again. And then on the plates, on the slabs, you of course slow down basically. But what this 8 kind of actually does, and that's quite interesting, it ends up with these split levels condition. And if you compare that to a traditional, let's say, elevator core building on the left, you find that all the public circulation space right is adjacent to the private unit, basically, on the same level. With this split level concept, you actually end up with kind of this public space in between, and you have this, I should actually stand up maybe and show, these kind of semi-private moments in the units that are then connected with stairs into the private concept on the top. And where else then, of course, Copenhagen could this be thought of? So let's say Copenhagen on LSD, there's a recent advertisement that came out. The guys are riding already on the roofs of Copenhagen, and so this could be a translation of that. So again, the scale is more a neighborhood. It's not a building itself, it's bigger than that. So let's say 200 by 130 meter. We kind of found a site that we could experiment further with. And the slabs, these mega floors, are like that double height, 8 meter high. And so we don't have a grid of streets anymore. We have these kind of circular arrangement, circle packing based on the 8 idea. And then we have this kind of flows that leads you up and down through the structure, basically. And this is like a water kind of erodes through stone. It's basically this kind of these flows of people wash out the structure internally, basically. And this is how it could look like, and then you have these kind of semi-public functions inside, this kind of maybe a cafe on the 4th floor and so on. And see again, like this idea of a double height floor and the more semi kind of public or private spaces on the ground floor of each duplex condition, and then have this private function on the top. And this would be kind of a view from the top. And yeah, it's like organizing flows not just 2-dimensionally, but really think of them 3-dimensionally. And they should all be e-bikes actually. I mean, they don't look like e-bikes anymore nowadays. You can hardly recognize an e-bike. Like the motor is like part of the framing and stuff. It's really, I think, an interesting kind of concept we should take further. This is a project we developed together with Schindler. Well, most of the stuff is actually in collaboration with Schindler, and this one is a concept we did with Schindler and Audi together. So an elevator company and a car company sitting together on one table. That was